Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso, the creator and host of our show. Today we welcome serial entrepreneur Raymond Riopel. Robert shares his story how he went from $150,000 in debt to financially free by the age of 32. He's an author who wrote a book titled Success Left a Clue, 6 Life-Changing Habits to Achieving Your Dreams while keeping it real, relevant, and repeatable. Robert talks about chaos is natural, embrace it. He also says everything happens for a reason, and the reason is there to serve me. He also shares that one step in the right direction is worth 1,000 years of thinking about it. I know you're going to enjoy our episode today, so on to the ascent. Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso, and I am the creator and host of our show. We are very excited about our guest today, and I learned some things just a couple minutes ago about an event that he had thousands of people at just recently, so I know he's going to knock it out of the park today. So let me tell you about our guest today, Raymond Riopel. Now, he uses humor in his stories to personally train over 500,000 people across the world. After going from $150,000 in debt and stress to completely financial free by the age of 32, Robert discovered the passion of training others because he felt that if he could even assist one person in their financial freedom, it would be all worth the while. He teaches it through his personal experiences and his struggles, his wins, and why he connects so well with people and teaches you how to do that. He's also the author of an international best-selling book called Success Left a Clue. He hails from Alberta, Canada, not too far north from northwest from our home here in the Twin Cities. And he's a serial entrepreneur and a husband of 32 years. So welcome to the show, Robert.
Oh, thanks, Pat. I'm so happy to hear. I've been having a great chat with you before we went live. And so I know there's so much we must have in common, especially our same warped sense of humor, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Robert, I always like to start off the show with having folks share something that the intro didn't tell us, like something about Robert that would be kind of intriguing to find out. So what would you tell us?
Well, Pat, I actually happen to have a very unique pet. And so she's still in bed because it's not quite time for her to get up yet. But I happen to have a 265-pound pet pig. Now, she doesn't know she's a pig. She thinks she's a dog, so shh, don't tell her. And she's actually a princess. We've had her since she was 2 days old. She was this big. Now she's 265 pounds, and she is a personality. As soon as I'm done this interview, I'll walk through the house. I'll be going, Gracie. And as soon as I say her name, you'll hear, time to get up. And she'll be like, and she'll talk all the way out till we get her outside. And she's just a character.
That is hilarious. That is just crazy. How long have you had her?
She's almost 10 years old now.
So probably just like having a dog. It's just a pig.
Oh, yeah. And we educate a lot of people on pigs because when she was younger, we'd take her for walks along the trails, and she was a lot more mobile. And, we couldn't walk more than 5 feet without someone saying, I've always wanted a pet pig. It's like, well, understand, they're so smart. You've got to know how they work. And adult pigs, they sleep most of the day. So now she loves being in her bed. Do not wake her up before 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or she's a grumpy girl. I'll tell you that right away.
Okay, so I'm dying to know before we get into the show, like, how did the idea to get Gracie come about?
It was by accident, but of course nothing is. We were visiting a friend who had a little hobby farm. And while we were there, all of a sudden, the three of us, my wife, myself, and her, we flew to San Diego for a 2-day event that a friend of ours wanted us to come and audit and tell him it was his first live event. And while we were gone, all of a sudden on the Saturday night, her ex-husband, who was watching her hobby farm, he's on the phone. He said, did you know Harriet was pregnant? And she goes, no, the doctor said she had an infection. And he's like, well, that infection was 7 piglets.
Oh,
and,
my.
Because the doctor had put her on antibiotics, she didn't drop her milk and she rejected the piglets. So she buried them in the hay to keep them warm because it was cold. And so when he found them, 3 of them had passed away already. He took the other 4 into the house. And when we arrived the next day, 3 more had passed away. And the only one still there was the runt, the little one.
Yeah.
And so we were there for 3 more weeks, camping in her yard and doing stuff together. And we started bottle feeding her and helping her out. And when we were getting ready to come home, we said, look, we know you can't take care of her. Yep. We will take her, foster her, find her a good home.
That was
Yep,
12
10
years
years
ago.
ago. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well,
She stole our hearts. She stole our hearts.
we could probably do a whole podcast on that. That would probably go to number one someplace, right? I mean,
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll
oh
tell you,
wow.
one of the things on the bucket list, my wife and I are going to write a whole series of children's books called The Adventures of Gracie May, because she's taught us so much.
I bet.
And she goes camping with us. She goes everywhere pretty much. We've had her in hotels, we've had her in Airbnbs, and we have a blast. And my wife and I used to have a Dodge Caravan van, a minivan, and we called it my wife's RV for roaming van, because I'd be overseas training. She'd open the tailgate, put the ramp in place, load Gracie up and our dog and she'd go traveling to see family all over the place, and Gracie would go with her.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you, that is the most interesting intro after the intro that we have had on our 50 plus episodes of the Success Ascent. So thank you for that. It will be definitely memorable. So let's shift gears away from Gracie. Let's talk about your journey of success. So the Success Ascent is about the journey of entrepreneurs, business owners. We know ideally we'd love it to be up, and yet sometimes it's sideways or down. So what have you learned in your journey as a serial entrepreneur?
Well, it's exactly what you just said. It's not just the ups, it's the downs, it's the sideways. Everything in the universe is energy, which means it travels in frequencies and vibrations. And people's mind like to tell them that it should only ever go in one direction, and then they get frustrated if it doesn't.
Right.
And so being able to understand that chaos, as an example, chaos is natural. And instead of resisting it, actually embrace it. Because if you understand what I call the 4 phases of life, what I'm writing into my new book, when you understand that chaos, as human beings, we're meant to evolve. And chaos comes into our life to help us do that and evolve. And we can either resist it and get smacked upside the head harder and harder, or we can actually learn to courageously volunteer for it. And that may sound odd, I get that, but if you courageously volunteer for chaos, and there's ways you can do that, then all of a sudden it'll allow you to actually take that journey so that when the down curves come, or the sideways, it doesn't impact you negatively or as harshly as it might normally have. And that's the biggest thing I'd love people to understand.
So we were talking a little bit earlier before you started about your journey and, the journey in general, that we're going to face struggles, we're going to face failures, and that's a learning opportunity. So talk about in your journey, like the most impactful failure, the biggest failure, or the one that you learned the most from. What was it, and how did you grow from it?
Yeah, and I look back now, hindsight being 2020, and I realize that everything happens for a reason. And a lot of people know that statement and they believe that statement, but they don't realize it's not the full statement. It's everything happens for a reason, and that reason's there to serve me. And you may not see it for years and may not understand why something happened. But here I am, I'm newly married, I'm a newlywed, I'm 21, I'm working for a factory. I've advanced my way up thinking I'm going to work for this factory for the rest of my life, become my own general manager. And all of a sudden, imagine my surprise when I walk into work one day and the general manager calls me in. And I still remember his name, Ron Humpting, because I hated that man for years. Because he calls me in to say, hey, we're closing the factory down. You've been laid off as of last Friday. And I'd been on a holiday, and I'm like, you couldn't tell me before I went on the holiday? He goes, oh, we didn't know. And because I had come from the factory and into inside sales, I was management, I was laid off right away. Whereas the people in the factory had ended up with an extra 2-3 weeks to finish up.
Sure.
And that blew my dream up, because here I am, I'd expected, here I am, I'm going to be a general manager. They've got factories all over North America. You just ruined my life. And what really upset me is he then sat me down and had the nerve, Pat, to sit me down and tell me everything I was doing wrong. And if I wanted to really have success in my life, what I need to do. And let's just say I wasn't in the right space to listen.
No.
And I kind of told him what I thought of him. But what I realized is when I look back today, here I was. I thought, here I am, and I'm going to be a general manager. But had he not laid me off, I would not have started delivering pizzas for Domino's Pizza out of necessity, because I couldn't find any real work, is what I thought. And from driving, I became a manager. From a manager, my wife and I became franchisees. From franchisees, we went deep in debt because our personal spending habits went out crazy in the 9 years we were franchisees. We ended up $150,000 in personal debt. And it's because of that stress, it led us to personal development, which when we did that, we also learned why we were in debt, to take responsibility. And next thing you know, 9 months after a 3-day training, we go from $150,000 in debt to being retired completely financially free at the age of 32, which led me to finding my passion, which is to be a trainer, which has allowed me to travel around the world several times and help hundreds of thousands of people. Today, I look back and I go, thank you, Ron Hunting, for laying me off.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
But I couldn't see it back then.
Right. I loved what you said. So I want you to repeat it. So if people are taking notes, listening live right now, and certainly they'll be listening again, it's the phrase about everything happens for a reason, and the reason is there to serve you.
Yeah, is there to serve me.
Yeah.
And when you understand that full statement, it now puts you into curiosity mode.
Yeah.
So even if something terrible is happening in your life, if you go, okay, if everything happens for a reason, this reason's there to serve me, why did it happen? And now because it puts you into curiosity mode, subconsciously your mind starts looking for a lesson.
Right.
And I believe if you can take, you can take a lesson from every situation, no matter how bad it is. And so when you're looking, and if you find that lesson and you actually utilize that lesson, it becomes a win, in my opinion. Yeah. And so that's how I look and view at life now.
I love that. So it doesn't happen to me, it happens for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And look, and stuff happens in life that we didn't ask for. Right. Some pretty traumatic stuff happens. And this is one of the ways of being able to say, okay, instead of being caught and going into a downward spiral, how can I catch myself? How can I then maybe start leveling off and then maybe starting to ascend again? Right. How do I do that? And so it gives you some tools. And, there's an equation, and I just used it this past weekend in the training I did. It's never the event that equals the outcome. So it's not E equals O. It's the event plus how you respond, how you react, that will equal the outcome. Which, if you understand that E plus R equals O, and you understand that you have the choice of how you react, you actually can take control back into your life. Yep. You can actually say, I do have choice in the way things are going because I have choice in how I respond. Yeah. I may not have choice about the event, but I have choice about how I react or respond to it.
Yeah, so absolutely true. So Robert, let's go back and say you're sitting down with somebody right now who's starting out as an entrepreneur. What advice would you give them? I mean, I know we're going to talk about the book and we're going to talk about the 6 habits, but what advice in your journey would you give them?
Just one step in the right direction. Love the saying that says, one step in the right direction is worth 1,000 years of thinking about it. So just get in the game. And it's another kind of saying that I love to use in the trainings is instead of ready, aim, fire, most people, they get ready, they aim some more, but they never fire. So especially in business, get ready in the time you have. Fire, get in the game, because no matter how much you pre-prep, all the what-if scenarios that you prepare for, until you actually open the doors, everything can change in an instant from what you thought was going to happen. So get ready in the time you have, fire, get in that game, then make your corrections, aim, fire again, aim, fire again. And if you do that, that's why the saying, success comes one step at a time. If you'll do that, it allows you to make those adjustments on your journey to success.
So I want to ask you another question on your journey. What have you found the most challenging and or the most surprising as an entrepreneur?
Most challenging is thinking I have to do everything on my own.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. I was conditioned growing up. Figure it out on your own. Don't ask for help. That's weakness. And no one can do it as well as you do it. And how tiring that is. So being willing to actually ask for help, vulnerability. People think that if you're vulnerable, you're weak. No, I've learned vulnerability is one of the greatest strengths a person can have. Because if you're willing to admit what you're not the best at and where you can use help, then that allows you to open the space for the amazing people that want to assist you.
Right.
You've just now opened the space for them to come and connect and be able to say, okay, I can help you. And so going through that was one of the biggest ones. And I'll tell you, it's a journey even today I work on, because it is tied with something else called low self-esteem. How many people I've met, including this person here, I'm pointing at me because everything I teach is what I need in my life.
Right.
Every day I still struggle with that low self-esteem. Who am I? Someone will go, well, Robert, you were just on stage in front of 6,000 people for 3 days. You just transformed their lives. But yet inside of me, the little kid's going, yeah, when are they going to figure out I'm not really that person? I'm not that great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
So let's talk about I'm really excited to talk about this. So you write this book, Success Left a Clue, which I just love the title, 6 Life-Changing Habits to Achieving Your Dreams While Keeping It Real, Relevant, and Repeatable. So where did the idea for the book come from?
I'm started as a student in 2001, and in 2002, someone's on stage saying, hey, everybody needs to write a book about their story. And I went, okay. And it only took me 15 years to actually write my first book. But that's where the idea started, is it sounded like a good idea. And then as I journeyed from struggle to success and finding my passion, it just started formulating. And it was a procrastination, right? Someone in 2008 kicked me in the ass, said, Robert, you've been talking about writing a book for years. Get the thing done. And I was on a hiatus. So I started writing. 2 years of procrastination, struggling. I finally found a way to do it, wrote it, had the manuscript. That was 2010, 2011, but it still took till 2017 to come out because I don't know why, but something just didn't feel right at the moment that it was time. Sure. And when I finally made the commitment, I actually took the manuscript, looked back at it, and rewrote half, because in the 5 or 6 years since I had it made, I had learned even more, been now traveling the world, not just North America. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden my experience, my knowledge had grown. And so I put that into the book. Okay. And it all started from 2002, someone saying, hey, you need to write a book. And I went, okay, sounds good.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, and that goes back to what you talked about, ready, aim, fire, right? Ready, fire, aim. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yep. So let's talk about the book. So you've got these 6 life-changing habits. I know they're all important, but I want to start with, which one do you think is the most important?
Well, the most to me is the one I mentioned earlier. Right. Step number 3, take action. Plain and simple. Because out of all my travels around the world, that's the biggest thing that people don't do. That they go, I want success, but then they don't do anything. And, well, that was a great training. Okay, what have you done with it? Well, nothing yet. Right. Okay, when are you going to take action? That's the most important. But the one I would back up behind that is step number 2. And it's right in alignment with your show, Pat, because you talk about the Success Ascent and going up. And to climb a mountain, you need a Sherpa. And to climb the biggest mountains in the world, the Sherpa is the person who knows where the safe places are. They know what to avoid. They know where to go. Right. And that to me is a mentor. So step number 2 is find a mentor or someone to model. And so that instead of you having to make all the same mistakes or hitting the same pitfalls or falling off the cliff, you have someone to say, oh, wait, no, don't do that. Here's what I learned from it. And on that step, the reason I love it so much is because there's a reverse side to it. It's not just, hey, I'm going to go find a mentor and someone to model from. It's also asking yourself, who can I be a mentor to? Who can I start modeling? And the number one kind of resistance I get to that is people go, but Robert, I haven't done what you've done. I'm not successful as you are. And it's like, no, but no matter where you are in your journey, I guarantee you there's someone that could utilize your knowledge. Yeah. So you be authentic, you be upfront, you say, here's where I'm at. And if you think I can help you, I'd love to help you. Because there's a little formula love that is a great formula for success. Learn something, then do it. Because when you do it, you get it on a whole deeper level. Right. And then the third thing, teach it. Teach it. Yeah. And so if you learn, do, and teach, all of a sudden now that helps you evolve. And then you're able to help assist those people up as you do your journey. Don't think you have to be at the top and then go, come follow me. You can't reach them. Yeah. But if you sit there and say, hey, come on the journey with me. I'll do the first few steps. I'll come back. I'll help you up. Yeah. I'll do the next ones. I'll put my, my links in the rock and I'll climb and I'll secure and then we'll help hoist you up. Have that journey together. So it was kind of unfair to me to ask you the favorite one and then not, touch on all 6. So I'm glad that you touched on the mentor one. And I want to remind our listeners at the end, Robert's got a great offer around the book. In fact, it has the word free in it. So stay tuned and you'll figure out how to get a copy of the book.
So I want to go back, Robert, to the one where you said, that this is where people struggle the most in is taking action. Why in your, what have you learned in your journey and in helping others to help them to get to take action? Like if that's the biggest one that they struggle with, what do we need to do to help people to do that more often?
Well, biggest thing is the reason people get overwhelmed and they get paralyzed is because they're 1,000 steps ahead of themselves. So let's go back to the example, what I said. I was here and I knew I wanted to be a general manager of my own factory. So my mind was already 1,000 steps ahead. What would I have to do? What would it look like? What's it going to take? How long is it going to be? And no wonder I got overwhelmed because there was all this stuff. And so if a person sits there and takes a deep breath in and comes back to being in the present and they ask themselves, what's one step? One step. And the key to this, Pat, is make it easy. Make it such an easy step that it's so ridiculously easy, you can't help but succeed at it. And so as an example, I'm writing my new book, The Authority Crew, right now. And if I get paralyzed, I'm like, okay, I haven't written in a while. What's stopping me? Oh, I'm not taking action. Okay, what's one step? Well, you know what? I'm going to go on the calendar and actually I'm going to put on my calendar a focus time on the calendar of when I'm going to go to my office and work on for even 30 minutes. And that one step of putting it on the calendar, then, and this is step number 4 in the book, I celebrate of Success Left a Clue. I celebrate like crazy. I'm like, yes, I just took another step. And I celebrate that to anchor it in because by doing a minute success, I create the habit of taking action. People think it has to be big things, but you take little steps and watch what you can accomplish.
That makes perfect sense. So let's go back and in fairness, give us the 6 steps in order.
Yeah. Step number 1 is to dream, but not just to dream, is dream big. As a friend of mine who also wrote the foreword to the book, Mr. Les Brown, he says, it's not that we set our goals too high and we miss them. The problem is we set them too low and we hit them, and which keeps us leading a mediocre life. So start playing, dreaming bigger. Anything's possible. Pretend, look, I'm aerodynamic. Pretend I'm the genie in front of you. And I tell you, as long as you're specific enough, you got to be specific, not general, and passionate enough, I will allow your dreams to come true. So pretend and ask yourself, what would I really love? So step 1, dream big. Step 2, find a mentor or someone to model from and ask yourself, who can I be a mentor to? Step 3, take action. Again, one step in the right direction is worth 1,000 years of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Step 4, celebrate your successes. Every morning I wake up, I have a success journal. Over the years, it's become a success and gratitude journal. And I do it in the morning because now when I'm thinking about my successes and my gratitudes from the day before, all of a sudden it sets me up for a great day and great energy. So that's step number 4, celebrate. Step number 5, believe in yourself. Yep. You asked me off air, what is the biggest issue I've seen around the world in all the different countries I've been in? And it's low self-esteem. Yeah. Low self-esteem is what plagues everybody around the world. So when you believe in yourself, it's about confidence, not arrogance. And I want your audience to get that. Most people who are in the arrogant mode is because they're trying to hide what's going on subconsciously, where they loathe themselves or don't believe in themselves. So they overcompensate by being arrogant. And then step number 6 is a step that kind of surprises people. And I'm going to preface it by saying this. Do not let the simplicity of the 6 steps fool you. Because step number 6 is simply repeat the first 5 steps. Just repeat them. Because what happens, Pat, is when you dream big, you find a mentor model from, you take action, you celebrate the success, it'll elevate your belief in yourself, which allows you then to have bigger dreams, find greater mentors, take greater actions, have greater celebrations, and it becomes a beautiful perpetual cycle.
Yeah, so simple, right? So simple. As you were saying it, something kind of struck me. We have all the personal development in the world, like amazing personal development in the world, right? And yet the number one issue, and I would agree with you, is people's confidence and belief in themselves, right? Yeah. And yet we have all these resources and everything to help people. So there's still lots of work to do, obviously. So one last question before I ask you about some advice you've been given in the past. So we've been living in this world for the last 18 months, close to 2 years. You're in Canada. You all have been a little bit more closed than we have in the US. Yeah, we have just as much craziness here that you all have. So as an entrepreneur, share one thing that's helped you succeed through this process, this new world that we're in.
Two powerful words in two different statements. March 10th, 2020, I arrived home back in Canada from India doing a powerful 3-day training. March 11th, I went into lockdown because I had been in another country. My world changed. I went from over 200,000 miles a year flying to zero. And when I got through playing the victim a little bit, because I did for the first couple of weeks, not sure what this COVID thing is, all that, I got, made myself sick. I didn't have COVID, but my mind made me feel like I did. That's how powerful your mind is. Yep. And then all of a sudden I remembered my wife and I sat down and we had the conversation. And the first two words that come up are, what's next? So when you ask those powerful words, again, it puts you into curiosity mode. And that's where we decided to build out this beautiful facility that we now have off the back of our home, where in total it's over 2,400 square feet between the support building, the training center, my office. And my students, when we can travel again, can come see me instead of me having to travel around the world. And I'm able to do virtual trainings now. So that was the first two words. But then fear came in, because it's like, well, hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue just went away. All your live events have been canceled. What are we going to do? How are we going to build it out if we don't have the revenue guaranteed coming in? So the second two words, all in. All in. Because, I just taught a program called Warrior this past weekend. And a warrior does everything at 100% or at 0. You don't go in to see if it works. You either give it everything you have, or you say, you know what, I'm not getting involved. And it's the people that sit there and do this, or have the plan B, or what if this doesn't happen? So when my wife and I said, what's next? And we said, let's build a center. I'm home. We have the time. Okay. What does that mean? Well, we're all in. Yep. And we've spent, by the time it's done here in the next couple of weeks, almost $500,000. And I'll tell you, it's going to be tight because, I still have 2 years in hundreds, over $1 million in revenue gone over the last 2 years. So that's thank goodness I have other businesses, but that was a big hit to the regular cash flow.
Well, and you all are still in some lockdown up there. I mean, so you're
absolutely.
Yeah.
So those two phrases will change your life.
Oh, they're great phrases. So let's shift gears a little bit. You've been prepared for this. What's the best advice that you've ever been given that hopefully you followed?
Yeah. One of my mentors is being a trainer. He said, Robert, you don't ever want to be afraid to be somewhere in the world and a student meet you and they're trying to figure out who you are, or worse, you have to remember who to be in front of them. So be yourself on stage and off stage. And Pat, that's one of my biggest pet peeves, because I've trained thousands of trainers, is I say, look, who you are on the stage, be that. Because in this industry, just like a lot of industries, who you meet, if you meet that person outside of their job, they're a different person. Sure. And I say, it means if you're a jerk, be a jerk on the stage, so that at least the people who resonate with you for who you are. And then that way, because I've met my students in the most amazing places around the world. And one of the first things they say is like, wow, you are just as goofy as you are on stage. I'm like, yep, that's all I know how to be. I don't have, my one brain cell doesn't have the capacity to remember that. Oh my goodness, that's a student. I've got to now be this person.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Can you imagine the energy that takes?
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
My gosh.
Yeah. So that would be the advice.
That's great advice. So you're prepared for this. Let's flip it upside down. What's the worst advice that you've ever been given that hopefully you didn't follow? And if you did, what did you learn?
Well, and I love that you asked that one, because it came from another mentor in the training industry. And his advice was, Robert, you can never let your audience and your students think they can be as good as you are. And I'm like, pardon me? He says, to keep your competitive edge, you've always got to let them know that they can be good, because I've trained thousands of trainers. He said, but you never want them to think they can be as good as you, because that's how you keep your competitive edge. And I looked at him and I said, thank you for the advice, but I'm going to let you know I'm not going to take it. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I said, you're right. I don't want my students to think they can be as good as me. I want them to think they can be better than me. Yeah. He's like, well, why would you do that? I said, because I'm not worried about the competition. And plus, I said, I became a trainer to help people. And if someone's going to get as good as me or better than me, that means they've got to help a lot more people than I've helped. And that's awesome. I said, so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, talk about, the alternative is ego and yeah, I mean, and we all get terrible advice, and yet what's always been common is when I ask that question of folks, just like you did, there's a great learning lesson in it, even if they
Yeah.
did follow it. So,
Yep.
well, first of all, Robert, you have been amazing. I am going to give you a second or two to come up with a final thought before we end our show. I'm going to do a little PSA and clean up here. And listeners, thank you so much for supporting what we do at the Success Ascent. You can always go to www.thesuccessascent.com, or you can go to patmancuso.com and subscribe, leave some ratings for us, refer to us. Boy, we just love to get the message out. We love what we do. We absolutely love our guests like Robert and the folks that have joined us, because they give us such great content, great ideas, great information, and great application, by the way. So, Robert, give us your final thought. Give us the takeaway, the close. What would be something you'd share with us before we leave?
Well, Pat, the greatest gift I believe anybody can give this planet is to show up being themselves, whatever that looks like. And that means, when you are you, either people are going to like you or they don't. If they like you, that's awesome. If they don't, that's awesome. Because how much time, and I come from personal experience, have we wasted in energy trying to be something someone else wants us to be? And so that,
Right.
I believe, is the greatest gift you can give. And, because you've been so generous to invite me to be a guest on your podcast, I would love, as a gift from us to your audience, for taking their precious time. I believe your time is one of the greatest commodities you have. And for the fact
Absolutely.
that your listeners have taken their time to listen, I'd love for them to be able to get my book, the entire digital copy, actually, not just part of it, but the entire thing, as a gift from us, as a digital download. And all they have to do is go to robertriopel.com, and they'll be able to do that. Now, I will say, though, this comes with a bit of a caveat. And remember, step number 3, take action.
Right.
I did not write this book for you to read it, put it on the shelf, and make it shelf help. That's
Absolutely.
not why I wrote it. I wrote it as a workbook where there's action steps all the way through. And on the action steps, I'll even write after it, I'll put, did you do the last action? If not, stop reading right now, go back and do the action before you continue, because people are creatures of habit. And I'm going to guarantee you, because I keep it real, I keep it relevant, I keep it repeatable. If you go in and your audience downloads it and does the action steps, they will see their life go in a whole new direction and elevate. So I'd love to do that for them.
Well, thank you so much. And I am so grateful for you being here. Obviously, I know how busy you are and how in demand you are. And so we are just truly grateful and appreciate everything you shared today, and absolutely appreciate the gift of the book. I've already done it. I've already got the book. I've already started reading it, and it's amazing. What I love about it is the simplicity. I just have to tell you, I just love the simplicity of it. And so we are just grateful. Robert, thanks so much for spending time with us today. We so appreciate it. And, listeners, as I end every show, be healthy, be happy, be safe. Take care, Robert.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care, everybody. If you've not yet subscribed, please go to your favorite podcast source and subscribe to the Success Ascent, or simply go to www.thesuccessascent, and that's ASCENT.com, thesuccessascent.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to catching you on the next Ascent.